Arjo, something tells me you've played a lot of Counter-Strike back in the day. Would that be a fair assumption?
Yes, I think it's fair to say my friends and I just lived in net cafes for about 2 years playing this game, and we even slept in the net cafes, and I went back and played it recently and everyone was so good, or I'm just really crap at it now, but it's good to see the trash talk is still there.
Well, that's what Counter-Strike's all about.
Yeah.
Well, Goose has taken some time to look back at this FPS phenomenon.
Let's move out. Enemy spotted.
Oh, you sneaky. You can't hide there like that.
I love my first-person shooters, and one of my all-time favourites is the classic Half-Life mod Counter-Strike. But it's been almost 12 years since its release, so like many gamers out there, I'm a bit rusty these days.
But that's not to say the game is dead and buried. In fact, far from it. On any given day around the world, you'll still find places like this packed with Counter-Strike players.
Launched in 1999, Counter-Strike was developed by Jess Cliff and Min Gooseman Lee.
Both were uni friends who spent more time creating the mod than they did on anything else. And when they released their self-made epic in March of '99 on Planet Half-Life, the site had 10,000 hits almost overnight.
All this was a massive lead-up to the first beta test in June of that same year. The reaction was overwhelmingly positive, and by April 2000, Gooseman and Cliff were developing Counter-Strike alongside the team at Valve.
Every PC gamer had a copy of Half-Life, but the thing is, the online mode for that was very simplistic. It was basically deathmatch. And at the same time, there was a mod that came out called Action Quake 2, and it was the first shooter that was kind of realistic-based, whereas most shooters at the time were fantasy-based. There was Quake with rocket launchers and lightning guns, but gamers wanted to use AK-47s, basically. Counter-Strike delivered a realistic team-based shooter with real-world weapons, counter-terrorism forces, realistic enemies, and looked a lot better than Action Quake, and it boomed. Within months, it was the shooter to play.
The concept behind the game is simple. You choose a team, either terrorist or counter-terrorist, and have 1 life per round to complete your objective. However, intense, addictive gameplay quickly turned Counter-Strike into a masterpiece of team tactics and quick reflexes.
When I was first introduced to it, I wasn't really accustomed to first-person shooters. I'd played Doom and games like that and Quake in the past, and I was like, yeah, but it's not really for me. But Counter-Strike, I think because I had a group of buddies who were all playing it, it was a little easier to get immersed in that particular type of game competitively and lose those hours. That probably explains some of the bags we've got now, to be honest.
The first time I played it, it was the first time I played something that was representing that kind of a reality and the brutalness.
Terrorists win.
I don't think anything has ever grabbed my imagination quite like that one did at the time.
One word comes to mind is simplicity. In the competitive scene, you've got 5 guys on 5 guys, and that's it. There's no vehicles involved. Everyone's equal to each other.
I'd say the very first time I played Counter-Strike Source, experiencing the ragdoll physics and blood splatter effects was just absolutely awesome.
One reason the game became so popular was how smoothly the engine ran on almost any computer. You didn't need a beast of a rig just to run the thing. Along with this, it was also one of the first to introduce objective-based games for teams. These included protecting groups of hostages and escorting them to safety, or disarming explosives set by the opposing team. Oh crap.
Terrorists win.
I guess it had made me a bit more of a team thinker in that way. Playing with friends, you know, you're always communicating with each other, telling each other what to do and kind of lecturing each other, I suppose.
I loved the competitive aspect of it. I'd see teams like playing each other in the rivalry, and the atmosphere was intense, you know, it was like electrifying.
All of this made Counter-Strike one of the biggest esport games out there. The regular updates refined it so well over the years and gave serious gamers one of the most pure playing fields online.
Hostage has been rescued.
It's simplicity. It's kind of like no-frills gaming, but it's got it right. It's got everything. There's nothing spectacular about it. It's just that it does everything you would expect from a first-person shooter really, really well.
Unfortunately, it's not without its problems though. Cheats and hacks have been a huge part of Counter-Strike. But Valve quickly responded to this by banning any players caught cheating for up to 2 years.
These bans have changed over the years, and Valve no longer ban players immediately in hopes that they might catch multiple culprits as word spreads of a new hack. And I can't talk about Counter-Strike without mentioning its huge impact on the industry. Many developers credit it as a major influence on a lot of their work.
You could see that the stuff that they were putting together, like defending a bomb, having a reason to be there, shopping in a multiplayer shooter for guns and stuff, was going to have a real impact on the way games went in the future. And in some ways, I think when you look at multiplayer combat today, all of it kind of, its history spawns from either Quake 1 or Counter-Strike, particularly the Half-Life variant, or the stuff that guys did back in Team Fortress.
They chiseled it down to its core essence. It was such a competitive game, such a great competitive game. Being able to use your currency to upgrade and things like that was just amazing. And I think it was a great influence for many of the games that I worked on. And I know a lot of our team plays and has played Counter-Strike, and it's definitely one of the greats.
Terrorists win.
You know, I think that there are a lot of really good design rules that you can learn from Counter-Strike and from the behavior of the Counter-Strike community. I don't know how many hundreds of updates we've done. And every time we do an update, we have our theory for what it is that we're doing. We think, okay, this is the behavior that will change, this is how people will react. And then you see what actually happens. And you learn a huge amount by the difference between what your expectation was and what actually happens.
So that's everything I do know. Here's what we don't know about Counter-Strike. As the market becomes flooded these days with AAA first-person shooters, is there still a future for Counter-Strike? And will it still be played in another 12 years?
Call of Duty is starting to take some of that market share, especially as PCs get more powerful and more people can run Call of Duty. But at the same time, a lot of gamers, they like the simplicity of Counter-Strike. You know, it's that there's no calling in a helicopter to kill your enemies. It's all about you aiming down the sights, shooting that guy.
It still is important simply because they're still using it. I mean, WCG, all of these sort of competitions, they're still using Counter-Strike as kind of like the measure of competitive gaming.
I'm sure that at some point Counter-Strike will be the answer to a trivia question rather than, you know, the insanely popular thing it is now.
There's one left.
Global Offensive does look very promising. New maps, weapons, and ranked matches have all generated a lot of hype. So, is it enough buzz to keep Counter-Strike alive? We'll just have to wait and find out.
Good game.
Every now and then we get a game change